Whine about their best. Winners go home and the prom queen.
Here we go, boys and girls. The best soccer show, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. Jason Davis, Jared Dubois. How can you do better than a live show after a U.S. victory in Italy?
Watch out, prom queens, because we're winners.
How do you even begin to sum that up? You know, like how do we start here, Jared? I
think golf clap's kind of appropriate.
Okay, you want to do that?
Yeah, golf clap.
Golf
clap.
Okay,
I think, without a doubt, a good win. I'm not sure it was a great played game, but a good win.
Okay, well, here we go. This is the thing, I think, the talking point out of it. Well, we'll get into what actually happened here in a moment, but I think we've got to put some context on this, right? We've got to talk about what it means. We got to get the people in here to tell us what they think it means. Phone number 201-430-BEST, 201-430-2378. Live taking phone calls like we do on Wednesdays. So if you've got an opinion on this, if you want to tell us that where everybody's overplaying it and that beating Italy for the first time ever in Italy is not a big deal because it's a friendly or because Italy's not the best they've ever been right now.
Whoever's saying that needs medication. It is important. And it doesn't matter that it's a friendly. It's a monkey off the back. And not just that, it's a win in Europe, which is something the U.S. always gets knocked for.
Okay, well, this is the thing. I try to find the equilibrium, the balance here. It can be a great historic win without being something that you use to trumpet the program moving forward. Or
it's not about that.
Klinsmann finally catching fire, finally, getting something going here, finally taking hold of this team and making it his own, any of that stuff. You can go way overboard if you really want to. And I don't know that I would blame you for the excitement because of the excitement and the aftermath, but it's an excellent win. The U.S. doesn't win in Europe. They definitely don't win against Italy. They don't win in Italy. They don't win without Landon Donovan. So all of these things are check marks in the positive in the pros column, and I don't know that we want to spend a lot of times on the cons.
Do you knock it at all that it wasn't necessary than all the Italian A guys playing, because it wasn't all the U.S. A guys playing either?
And that's the thing. Like I said, I'm being funny on Twitter, and afterwards I said, well, that was nice. That was nice. It wasn't Spain '09, but it was nice. And I said that's as far as I'm going to go. Is nice. And then I said that I was trying to put it in some medium terms without going over the top about it and getting crazy excited about it. And
it's a great step.
People were telling me, well, and I said, because it's not the best Italy team, obviously, but people were telling me, well, this is not the best U.S. team that's possible either. We're missing a bunch of guys. We had to drop a bunch of guys. Landon Donovan's the headliner, but there's a couple other guys that could have made a difference in that game or may have been upgrades over the players that did play. So you've got to give the team credit for putting in a team effort. Now, I'm going to say an element of luck was involved, certainly, right? They had a bunch of offside calls that may or may not have been offside. There was a couple of good saves by Tim Howard, which there always are, don't get me wrong.
Credit to Italy, though, to figure out where the U.S. was weak and just attack it. Just putting their finger in that wound right through the middle of that back line and using the speed of Giovinco to just penetrate the U.S. back line. And I'll say one thing about that little guy. That's little man speed. U.S. has a lot of big man speed, right? But little man speed, that's a whole different kind of speed.
It's fun to watch a little guy run fast, isn't it?
It's fun. And you know what? It's not fun, though, if you're a U.S. fan, because they just could not match the speed of that player. Luckily, because they couldn't match him, he was always in front of him and offsides consistently.
Right, and that was. But see, that's part of the plan. Is that the U.S. is going to play the trap, and a couple of times they probably got beat and got saved by the linesman. But for the most part, I mean, I don't know. Clarence Goodson was a step slow a couple of times. Fabian Johnson kept somebody onside that when there was an offside call, but actually the player was onside. I can't remember who that was.
Fabian Johnson looked great in this game. The only thing that I can even say partly negative is that he's not quite on the same page with that back line, but that's forgivable because he hasn't had to play that role for this team before.
That's the thing. I mean, I'm making notes here as I'm watching the game back after I got home. Couldn't watch it live, listen to it live, so I already knew what happened. That's always tough to watch a game when you know what the outcome is going to be. But anyway, a couple of notes. I thought the flanks were pretty strong. I mean, especially the right
Very
side.
much
They didn't play through the middle a lot, but then they couldn't because they had Bradley and Adu there, and then really that limited what Clint Dempsey.
When you have a player of Pirlo's skill set and culture, you can't leave him. And so you're always going to have to give up part of the middle of the field in order to try to negate him. And I'll say this about Pirlo. That is the Ron Jeremy of the football world. He puts his balls wherever he wants on the field.
Okay, you do this to me all the time. I can't. You just throw me off. I lose my train of thought. But speaking of the middle, for what Bradley and Adu were supposed to do, they did it well, and especially Michael Bradley. And I think for most people, he's the American man of the match. He's the guy that controlled things. He broke up play on more than one occasion when the Italians looked like they were threatening for actually creating an attack. So there were just people glowing about Michael Bradley and his performance. I'm one of them. I thought he was fantastic.
It was always going to be Michael Bradley's stage to shine upon, being that it's in Italy, because he plays there, he's starting there consistently, and because the nature of a player like Pirlo being in the midfield for Italy, it was always going to be his role to step up. What I will say I was surprised by is his counterpart, Maurice Adu. I think it's one of the best games he's played for the U.S. kit since the World Cup in 2010.
He's prone to an errant passer too. I mean, that's par for the course with Maurice Adu. But for him, I thought he played very, very well. But back to Bradley, I got to throw this in. Trevor, our producer, requested we drop from Michael Bradley, so here you go.
So smooth.
Yeah, a little smooth today.
So smooth.
Gets the honor of a drop on the best.
I'm not happy that Sade found a way onto the show, but I am happy with that drop.
Silky smooth like that head of his is the joke in the chat room here. All right, look. For all of the good, there has to be a little bit of bad. And I think that the question, one of the things coming out of here, and I think Alexi Lalas is the guy that was throwing it out there, is that the United States didn't play with any different style. This wasn't a flair team. This wasn't a heavy possession team. They passed the ball fairly well, but it wasn't like they controlled the game. So really, here's the question, and let me go ahead and tease this now. We got Brian Straus from the Sporting News who's going to join us in the last segment tonight. And I'll ask him this too. Was that a Bradley-style win? Was it Jurgen Klinsmann at the helm, but Bob Bradley's team went out there and won that game?
I totally agree with that. I think that was it. But here's the thing. I see it's a Bob Bradley style, but I think that's the U.S.'s style. I don't necessarily think it's Bradley style. We talk all the time.
But then we have a problem, right? Because if Jurgen Klinsmann is going to put all of this lip service into changing the style, and that's just who we are, and there's nothing that's going to change it. These are the players we've got. Then why are we doing this whole thing about talking out a new style? Why are we talking about?
I think that's more about the future, Jason. But I think there's an element to this that we can't lose in whatever Jurgen Klinsmann tries to put in place, and that's that. I think America already has its style. It's gritty. It's dirty. It's effort. It's something that's everything about the American that's in our style of play. And we do need to get technically better. But I think if we embrace technique and lose the drive and desire, then we've lost something. And today I saw a lot of drive and desire.
I agree with you. You have to find a way to keep the drive and desire and work in the new style, whatever that is. Jonathan's on the line with us. What's up, Jonathan?
Nothing much, guys. How you been?
We're all right. So what's on your mind today? You're basking in the victory over Italy, obviously.
Yes, today's the first time in a while I've been able to say I'm proud to be an American soccer fan.
First time in a while?
Wow.
That's cool, man.
What about when Alex Morgan was in Sports Illustrated?
Very proudly say it.
Okay, go ahead.
But I would just like to touch on Josie Altidore, because it's kind of interesting to see the progress he's been going through, because like now as a player, like today, for example, he didn't have many shots on goal or anything like that, but I don't know if you guys have noticed, but his hold-up play is really improved, and that's
in the second half. I'll give you that.
I think that's a new facet of
he
game
was a little dodgy in the first half, and he went down too easily, which Josie has a tendency to do when he's a little frustrated. And obviously, Italy is going to play him physically, so that's something he's got to learn. If he's going to be battled, he can't just go down and hope for calls. He's got to stand up to those guys. He definitely improved in the second half. Obviously, made the great play to lay it off for Dempsey for the goal. Josie is growing. But that's the thing. You mentioned not a lot of shots and that kind of thing. That's not Josie's job in this system. That's not at least the way that Klinsmann set this team out. We can talk about how the style is not much of a change.
Josie's job is to be there for the return pass. He's there to hold it up, give the pass, and maybe get a return pass back. That's his role in this system.
And move off the ball when he does that. Hold the ball up, lay it off, get rid of it, and move into space where he can be dangerous. And that didn't happen a lot. I mean, and like I said, that's
It's the nature of playing Italy, Jason. I mean,
Right.
he's going to be on an island. The U.S. was never going to push forward to the point where they were going to allow Italy to break on them. You see with the speed of Italy.
Right. You're encouraged by Josie's performance, Jonathan.
Yes, because I think that's what the system needs him to do is to with that hold-up play, and I think he showed today that he has it in him, and it's only going to improve, I think, farther on.
Okay. Anything else before we let you go?
No, all good. Thank you.
All right, Jonathan. Have a good evening. All right, look, there were, like I said, there were a lot of good things, and we can debate the style change and that kind of thing. But the bottom line is they won a game in a place where they weren't supposed to win a game, and I can be wet blanket with
in a place that no other team has ever won a game.
No. But let me ask you this: I mean, does the win does it eliminate any kind of criticism we might have for Klinsmann in his team choice? Would you have any problems with that? I mean, I wasn't thrilled to see Maurice Adu, Michael Bradley paired up together if Michael Bradley wasn't going to be the player getting forward more, which, based on their number selection, may have been the case. All right, we've got like a minute and a half, and we've got another phone call. 219. Who's this?
Hey, this is Michael.
Hey, what's up, Michael? Quickly.
Hey, I'm a big fan. I just had a question a second. Klinsmann was quoted today as saying that he's done with Landon Donovan, with the game. He said that we can move on from him. Do you think that means just from today's game, or do you think that means for the future as well?
I'm going to let you go. We'll talk about that for a second here. I think Mike left us a voicemail as well with the same question. I did not see or hear or read these comments, but based on my knowledge so far of the situation, I would have to imagine he means in this context, that he means in this situation.
I think you tried. It's a move to both reassure the players that are on the field and also be a little bit. It's real world. At some point, the U.S. national team is going to have to move away from Landon Donovan. But I think more than anything, it was to instill confidence in the guys he had out there today.
Sure, but I don't think it implies that Jurgen Klinsmann's done with Landon Donovan, or that Landon Donovan is not going to feature heavily for this team in qualifying and moving towards Brazil. Whether he's there in that spot and the guy in Brazil, I don't know yet. But at least until Landon Donovan proves that he's done, and he's so far from that, he's maybe changing as the type of player he is, but he's so far from being done, he's got to be a part of this team. So I'm sure that's what Klinsmann meant. And in this
Danny Williams isn't doing anything to get to work Landon Donovan out of job either.
I think obviously if healthy, then Donovan starts. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk whatever. We got a bunch of stuff going on here. Will Kuhns from MLS might join us. Be right back.
I don't think I can live any more times.
Jason and Jared back on the best soccer show, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. And we're happy to be joined by I'm just going to blank on your title, Will. It's Director of Communications for MLS, Will Kuhns. How are you, Will?
I'm doing great. You got it right.
Yeah, I have it here. I just have it in front of me at the moment. We brought Will on to talk a little bit about what's going on down in Houston, that there's been a ban issued to Houston supporter groups, and I don't know if they're individually identified. Will, maybe we can get into that. But can you just tell us exactly what happened here, what decision MLS made, and what these fans were guilty of that caused the ban?
Sure, and it's very clear that we not oversimplify the decision here, because it's not a ban on supporters. It's
right.
A ban, or it's, I wouldn't even use the word ban. We've actually just pulled back some privileges that are usually granted to supporters. So
okay.
It's akin to when you were a kid and your mom would maybe say that you had to be back in an earlier time because the last time you were out, you didn't come back when you were supposed to, or something like that.
Okay, they're on restriction. They're on restriction, Will.
I'm sorry.
They're grounded. They're on restriction.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of the concept, I guess. And the other thing is that I think this one is attracting a little bit more attention because of two things. One, that the league acted as opposed to the club. And two, that we made the decision to make public the letter that we sent to supporters. And the main reason why we did that was to make sure that there wasn't any misinformation about what exactly the infractions were and what exactly the action was that the league took. This way it was out there for everybody to see and read. and discuss. And we think that that dialogue is actually very healthy. We think that it's an education process. There's going to be an ongoing dialogue with every supporters group and their club primarily. And that in this case, the league acted in part because one of the games where the infraction occurred was at MLS Cup, which is run by the league. So, I think that we did know that there were previous infractions of a similar nature, and so we included those, and we knew that those infractions had been mentioned to the Houston supporters prior to MLS Cup, and so that's why they were all included in the letter, because we felt that it was communicated clearly that in that venue, smoke devices were not permitted, and neither were devices that could be, that could be lit, and both were used, and so, we decided we had to do something, and we recognize that it's a small minority of fans that are affecting the whole, but that's part of how these issues work. You can't necessarily always know the exact identity of the person who lit or threw or this or that, and it's important that everybody understand where the line is between festive and inappropriate.
Well, let me ask you a question. Will, are smoke bombs allowed in any situation in any venue in the league?
There are places where, with the club and along with the venue security, an exception is made. We allow for the venue and the club to work with the supporters groups, and if they see fit, to grant that type of exception. So it is not for the average fan, yes, across the board, a smoke bomb is not something you can just carry into the stadium. But if you have a specific supporters group affiliation and you have arranged it ahead of time with stadium security, then there are circumstances in which they can be used, within the rules.
Will, is this the first time precedent from a league standpoint involving supporters groups? Is there any other time that maybe hasn't been public? You said you made the letter public for this incident. Is there any other time like this that MLS has stepped in terms of supporters groups like this?
Yeah, I believe in Toronto a few seasons ago, the commissioner actually spoke out against the use of streamers because they were getting out of hand and disrupting the play. And then the Toronto supporters, their use of the streamers in a way that disrupted the play, and now streamers are back to being, I think, if I'm correct, an acceptable exception for the supporters because they don't throw them. They don't basically cover the guy who's trying to take a corner kick and make it impossible for the game to proceed. And that was happening a little bit there. I forget which year it was. I think it was either 07 or 08. And so there have been a number of instances. And in many cases, the club will consult with the league if they're looking to try to decide, okay, well, we have this thing going on, and we'd like to figure out a way to rein it in, or just convince them that there really is a line between this type of behavior and that type of behavior. They'll often consult the league office. So again, it's a very what do I want to say, cooperative effort on the part of the clubs, the supporters groups. I mean, I have to remind you, the leaders of the Houston supporters groups are also they don't want to see people cross the line either. They want to be safe, and they want to make sure everybody has a good time. And so usually I think we find that there is a good way to work to a solution together.
Let me ask you about, I got to go back to the smoke bombs, and I'm sorry, but how would the league respond to some people who might point out that some of the promotional material, video used by maybe not necessarily just MLS, by TV partners and the like, seems to include smoke bombs on occasion? Are those sanctioned smoke bombs in every case?
That's a good question. I think that's something that we definitely started to pay attention to on the communication side and the marketing side. We were conscious of the fact that there were venues that just flat out prohibited them across the board, and therefore there could be some confusion among fans as far as what is allowed and what isn't allowed. But that's another reason why we post the fan code of conduct on the website. If they go to the fan section of MLSsoccer.com, our pledge to fans is also on there. and we put these things in the stadiums, and we try to communicate them as often as possible, because I can understand why that could be seen as mixed messages.
Well, let's talk about the time frame for this a little bit in the review process. The first incident noted in the letter comes on September 24th. 2 more incidences within the next 2 months after that, without any kind of restriction, as we said, handed down to the Houston Dynamo supporters. Why so long from the incident before this is put in place and so close to the beginning of the season?
Well, I think that, again, the third incident was at MLS Cup. So you have the off season then to deliberate, and there aren't any more games during that time. And I think that the idea was to make sure that we took action before the games resumed. But I think that within that, you want to take as much time as possible to have all the appropriate conversations and really try to figure out if we can identify the bad apples, if you want to call it that, who are doing things that are not allowed. Because if you can, then you can deal with it a little bit more on an individual basis as opposed to on a group basis.
Will, is there any sense on the part of MLS with the new NBC contract? Obviously, ESPN's been a partner for a long time, but is there a sense, maybe not a crackdown necessarily, but more attention paid to what fans are doing in the stadium because the TV is getting a little bit bigger, because MLS is getting more visibility?
I wouldn't make that correlation. I think that supporters groups on both the fostering the environment side and also on sort of figuring out the correct boundaries side and how to maintain them. Both of those have been going on and evolving with the league. And so we've become more sophisticated in the way that we monitor fan behavior, and fans have become more sophisticated in the types of things that they'll do at games that make the atmosphere great. And I just think that, both of those elements are growing up along with the league.
All right, Will Kuhns, Director of Communications, for MLS, talking a little bit about the ban on certain items and for the Houston supporters groups after a couple incidents last year. We appreciate the time and the clarification, Will.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands. But we at the league office are really supportive of the Dynamo supporters groups. The majority of what they bring is fantastic. I actually think they're underrated among MLS supporters groups, and we're going to finally see here and there when they get into their new building. I think they're going to start getting maybe the credit that they deserve for the atmosphere that they bring, and they have since 2006. In a lot of ways, I think they started this MLS 2.0 that we're seeing with real engagement from fans, and so we want to see that continue, and we're glad that the fans are willing to do that at games, and we just want to, like I said, work together with them to make sure that it's safe and enjoyable for everybody. All
right, thanks a lot, Will.
Take care, guys.
All right. Will Kuhns, Director of Communications for MLS. It's an issue that popped up. I'll admit that my familiarity. I knew what incidents they were talking about from last season, especially the MLS Cup. I remember that incident, but whether or not this was a fair response was not something I had a grasp on necessarily. And I went looking around, and obviously Houston fans were upset. And I don't know, were they right to be upset? You can't throw stuff on the field.
Listen, I was there at MLS Cup. I was there at the event, watched them throw all the smoke bombs at the end. There's no way it looked like a celebratory process. Their team just lost 1-0 in MLS Cup. Right. Stuff's coming on the field, not just smoke bombs. I was there. Beer bottle, not bottles, but cups. All sorts of stuff was getting thrown on the field. This was in no way a celebratory process. This was people that, like I said, it's not a huge percentage. It wasn't all Houston supporters, but the people that chose to participate in it,
right,
were being jerks. That's the only way I can say it. The way I can think to say it. If people talk about, we use smoke to show our pride. Come on, man! You're throwing beer on the field too. There's no pride in that.
Yeah, here's the rule. Like, as of March 1, Dynamo traveling supportors, and that's travel. That's what it is. It's away support. Will not be permitted to utilize items listed as supporter group exemptions in the MLS prohibited items policy. Flags, banners, confetti drums, everything that supporters groups use to make it clear that they are supporters groups and not just average Joe fans. The Dynamo fans will not be able to use those things on the road.
Listen, does anyone let their friend run around their house with a sparkler? No. In your house, you may tell people to take that stuff outside.
Yeah. Get those black cats out of my living
These
room.
are huge companies with billions of dollars at stake that can't afford the lawsuit that comes along with incendiary devices.
The one thing I was most interested in was the possible hypocritical nature of the promos that have
I
been.
got that. I get that.
If you're showing smoke bombs in ads for the league, and then you say that Dynamo fans are banned because they use smoke bombs, which isn't exactly right, but that's part of it.
It looks bitchin'. I'm not going to act like it doesn't. It looks bitchin'.
They were
but
obviously,
it has to be rules.
right. They were obviously punished because they threw them on the field. That's the biggest issue here. But if you're saying that they were punished for using smoke bombs in the first place, and even if that's not exactly right, it looks bad if you have it in the promo stuff.
My only issue, and we talk to them, but
some people get away with it. Some people can get away with it. I think Philly gets away with it. I don't know. There are a couple of exemptions, right?
Well, my only issue was, and I did try to ask him about this, but maybe I should be a little more refined in, is that with September being the first incident, if MLS has stepped in then and punished them at that time, the other two incidents might not have happened.
All right, we'll be right back. Best Soccer Show. Don't go anywhere. Jason and Jared back on the Best Soccer Show live Wednesday night edition, last day of February 2012.
In case you haven't heard it yet, it's Taylor Tillman's birthday. Did anyone not know that?
No, I think everybody knows it's Taylor. That's not to come down on Taylor. He's obviously the man gets.
Dude, I would celebrate the hell out of that day.
Every 4 years, he gets to celebrate his birthday. Oh, look, breaking news. The U.S. men's, U.S. U23 national, whatever. U.S. U23s starting 11 against Mexico. Hamid, Sarkoti, Opara, Kitchen, Valentin, Morales, Discarud, Corona, Adu, Agudelo, and Gao.
Interesting. I mean, I think the most interesting there is Morales comes in for Shea, and Morales a lot of times gets pigeonholed into more of a defensive role, especially when he's made appearances or brought into the U.S. national team senior camp. Mm-hmm. So we're good there. I like I want to see what Discarud and Corona do near each other.
Team. There's some flair in that team. If they can make some things happen, I'll be excited. All right, let's talk quickly about the besides Terrence Boyd making his debut. We haven't talked a whole lot about Terrence Boyd, but good debut for the kid. Gets a cap before he plays a senior game for Dortmund. But hey, these things happen. He's a talent.
Hey, I like that we're sowing the seeds and planting those seeds of stay American. Stay American. You may succeed at Dortmund, but don't go German.
Right. Oh, let me give the phone number again in case you guys want to call in. 201-430-2378. Jump in at any time. We got Brian Straus next segment, so this is your last chance to get in if you got thoughts on Italy. Or
I'll say this for Terrence Boyd. I'm going to say this for Terrence Boyd.
You're killing me here. I'm trying to get to the jerseys. We got to talk about
you like order. I like chaos. I will say this, though, for Terrence Boyd and any potential German that can play for America. What today showed is if you're German and want to win in Europe, play for the U.S.
Did they lose to France today? The German national team lose to France today?
2-1.
You know that the Germans are going to be strong favorites to win a World Cup in 2 years. So, I don't know how far we go with that. But one thing I noticed, you brought it back to Terrence Boyd, or you just sticking with Terrence Boyd here. One thing I noticed is he was pumped to come into that game.
Dude, he was electric.
Yeah, I think the kid just loves playing, and he's excited to play for the U.S., and that does make me happy to see that. And obviously, we talked to Brian Sciaretta, and he says that the kid is just, he's just beaming about this, and obviously a good kid. So I'm excited to see him. I mean, I'm a little bit hesitant to crown him as the next great hope, but
I'll crown him the next man-child because that dude is huge.
Yeah, he is a man-child. Okay, jerseys. Tell me what you think, because there's so much consternation and angst and just people are going.
I love me a good sweater vest.
It does have a little bit of a sweater vest, but look,
I dig to get the sash.
I saw the leak. The leak. Excuse me. I saw the leak. I wasn't sure. I saw them in them, and they're fine. There's nothing wrong with them. I don't understand this whole the ugliest things ever stuff.
No. There's plenty of other mock-ups I saw in the last couple months. But what I will say is I'm not a fan of the blue. I think I like a little pop of something else in there.
Yeah, the sash blue on blue, the muted, it doesn't work.
That sash in white, I think, would look much better on that kid.
Especially on television when you can't really make out the blue sash on the blue shirt. You just can't make it out. So what's the point, right?
I'm sure that jersey looks great on the casual fan out wearing it with jeans or something like that, where something else can kind of pop with it, and you can see that kind of detail in person. But on the screen, it doesn't really come off from a distance at all.
A guy's getting ready to go out for Night on the Town. He's like, you know what?
I hope no one's wearing that on a first date.
I think I'm going to wear a sweater vest. Oh, no, I've got the U.S. men's national team away jersey. I don't
I would have embraced the sweater vest look if they had made the neck a V.
Oh, yeah?
You can't have a sweater vest with a circle neck.
You can. It's not the best look. You're really...
You got
to rock a collar, but, you know, I don't know. I think it's fine. I think it's
excited to see the home one. Are we going to see the home one in the next game?
I don't know why we're... Okay, look. When did the sash versions come out? That was
the Don't Tread on Me ones, the red and blue ones that came out just before I think the World Cup.
Yeah, okay. Well, so we were due in the timeline of the way things work nowadays. It's just it gets tiresome to change all the time. And
it hurts my pocketbook.
I know that Brian Straus has some strong opinions on jerseys, and I don't know that I've gotten his opinion on this one. I know he's against white, so just be glad it's not white, I guess. I mean,
all I know is that I don't have the clout of Jason Davis. I don't get free kits just sent to me so I can put on my wall behind me.
Nike is not hitting me up to send me free national team jerseys. That is not happening. I've got the Chicago Fire, which thank you very much, Chicago Fire. And I've got
Look at you, pimp. Look at you, pimp. I'd pimp too if I got some stuff.
Start a blog and write and get a bunch of people reading.
I just want stuff for free with no work.
Sure. We've got a ton of emails here that we should probably get to immediately coming in after the victory over Italy. Let's start with David in Austin, Texas. Leaving aside the issue of which team played better, is the win for the U.S. a result of Klinsmann's coaching philosophy, whatever that may be, or is it just the usual suspects, Bradley, Bocanegra, Altidore, Dempsey, in good form and doing what they would do under any system, and you can't say a little bit of both?
That's for you.
Oh, okay. If I'm picking one, I'm picking the latter. I'm picking that it's these guys playing well at the moment, and that Klinsmann's system philosophy had little to do with that victory. And I will stand
I would agree with you mainly because you haven't got the chance to see how he's going to put Donovan and Dempsey in together. You got to think his main plan is gearing towards getting them on the field together. No Jose Francisco Torres. If Jose Francisco Torres starts in this game, I think maybe you could say that's more of a Klinsmann style of team, because a person like Jose Francisco Torres never got a sniff at the middle of the field in Bob Bradley's system. So I'm going to say that. But so I'm going to take that it is more these guys stepping up in a Bradley-esque type system than anything Klinsmann's necessarily doing at that point. And I feel bad. Klinsmann has to do a lot, I guess, to win me over. A win against Italy isn't enough for me for some reason.
His job, I mean, I know he's going through all of this transformation, reformer stuff, and he's talking a lot. The man put out a podcast. He didn't stay up for very long because he did it through Dropbox, but the man put out a podcast ahead of this match with talking to Alan Hopkins. He's got all of those. Okay, it's back up somewhere. I haven't seen it. He's got all of those videos from U.S. Soccer coming out. He likes to talk, and I think this is his way of trying to change the culture slowly.
He also likes to groove, by the judge of that music.
Yeah, it was a little outcast on that podcast. But look, he's trying to do this transformation. But the bottom line is he's supposed to win games, right? We will come down on him if he doesn't win games, because we've gotten to the point now where we expect success on a certain level. Maybe not against Italy in Italy necessarily, but certainly when we get to qualifying. So he's got to win games. So you have to give him credit for putting a team out there that won a game, whether it's his style or not his style. Doesn't matter.
I want to get to this email because I have a take on this afterwards, but this one from Nick, and he says, gotta say that's a nice confidence-building win for our boys. Bradley, Dempsey, Edu, John Johnson all looked solid today, and Josie really showed up in the second half. Certainly, Bradley cemented his role in the midfield for his performance today. Besides Dempsey and Bradley, I'd say Johnson strung together the best performance for a field player. That's great, but what does this mean for Chandler? And this is what I want to talk about, because doesn't this kind of free up? And we had Brian Schroeder on the weekend, and he says he wants to see Tyson Chandler. Wow, it's not basketball. He wants to see Chandler move up to right mid. So right. By Fabian Johnson playing so well at left back, does that free up Chandler to maybe fill in for Danny Williams and puts Landon Donovan out on the left?
I think so, because as much potential as Breck Shea has, and we didn't really discuss his performance, I thought he was to bad going forward. He worked hard. He tracked back well.
I think he was decent on the ball. He's better on the ball than Williams, but Williams passed much better than Breck Shea passed on the day.
Right, but I don't know that Breck Shea is quite ready to take on the mantle as established starter on the left side. So if you're going to have the option of playing Timmy Chandler on the right and putting Donovan when he's healthy on the left, then I think that's exactly what you want to do. And maybe Fabian Johnson is not the perfect left back. But we've been dealing with so many worse than imperfect left backs for so long that I think it's okay to say, you know what, he's pretty solid. He can play a little D, and if he can get forward, and we know he can get forward, why not? Why not use him?
What do you say to people that think that in this short time Spector was in there, maybe he's a solution? Because I think he was asked to do nothing going forward, and we know Jonathan Spector can play defense. Well, I mean, what can he bring you going forward on the left, though?
Yeah, but it depends on what you want, right? It depends on what you want.
I want someone to use it's a wall in the 6, and that's what he was.
Fullback. Do you want your left-sided fullback? Do you want him to go forward as much as you want the guy on the right to go forward? We know Steve Cherundolo's going to pick his spots and be smart about it. I don't know. I mean, it depends on because we talked about it, right? They were much better going up the right side, right? Right.
I think if the right side gave you something that was predictable and consistent. I think the left side was trying to be a lot more dynamic and do a lot of different things that didn't come off that much. And I think Italy really punishes you when you lose the ball. They start to counterattacks quickly and they look really good every time you mess up. But I do like the relationship that's building there between Johnson and Shea. It's just not there yet, and not there at a place where you can count on it consistently in World Cup qualifying.
Right, exactly. But
I think that's more Shea's issue than it is Johnson's.
Probably at this point, although back to Danny Williams for just a second, we know that's not his natural spot anyway. So if you have the option to move him out of there, and I know that maybe he's not going to overtake Maurice Adu yet, but I think I'd rather have him working in that spot with the potential of taking over that position where he's most comfortable than being forced to play on the right flank where he's not exactly comfortable. I mean, I think he did fine today. He wasn't he wasn't bad. It wasn't.
That being said, I think Fabian Johnson looked better than any left back we've had in there at any stretch of time, right? And that's just one game. I get that, but he's playing there for his club as well.
Right. I mean, if there was no history with his club team, then maybe you say, oh, this is a one-off. It's an aberration. If he's getting some time there with his club, then maybe you say, okay, this can be a solution, especially if you don't have any better options. All right, one more quick email. So many things to talk about, but the one I can't. This is from Joseph McLean. So many things to talk about, but the one I can't get over is Alexi trying to tell us the U.S. did not play any different than we did under Bradley. Quick passing, up-tempo, movement, swarming the ball. Yeah, exactly the same as Bradley. For sarcasm is implied there. He also tried to say we went back to the old way of defending when we got the lead, and that was good. It wasn't a planned defense. We were still breaking on counters, but we were laying back on defense because the team was getting tired. The style we played under Klinsmann is exhausting, and you could see our players tiring, so the ball control was getting sloppy. Lawless is trying something, whatever.
Listen, I'm going to back my man Alexi here because I get what Joseph's saying, that there was some quick passing and there was some up-tempo movement and swarming of the ball. But the problem is, if you think that was the majority of the game, I'm not sure I watched the same game as you.
Let me say it this way. If Bob Bradley is 1.0 and Jurgen Klinsmann's trying to get us to 2.0, we're at 1.1 right now. That's where
definitely, it's moved on from Bradley. I can see that. There was some great passing movements, especially in the first half.
There's something else there. There's a little bit different dynamic working. They're moving the ball a little quicker. I can see that. But for the most part, if you had told me, if you dropped me out of the sky, brought my 2010 self forward and I didn't know that Jurgen Klinsmann had taken over this team, I would have thought that Bob Bradley was still the coach. Especially
except for the players chosen. That's the only thing that tells me it's a Klinsmann team, I think.
Why? How did the players...
Germans, son. Germans.
Well, that's the thing. But if you didn't know that Jurgen Klinsmann finally took the job, you're not going to just surmise that because there are Germans in the team.
Pretty German, dude.
Because Bob Bradley took a look at some Germans before he got axed. That wasn't just happening because Klinsmann came in. That's not. I mean, some of them are new since Klinsmann came in, but he took a look. So I'm just saying that if it's 1.1, at least that's progress, and I think that's what
I liked Pepsi in the '90s anyway. But when Cindy Crawford started drinking it, I really paid attention, and that's how I feel about this. The Germans are taking over now that Klinsmann's in there.
Okay, wait. So the guy in charge makes it more attractive, even if the play isn't any different.
I think I'm saying that's how I could tell a little bit more. It's more of a Klinsman style team because of the few players that were chosen.
Okay, but I'm saying, but do you think that there's a significant difference as we get out of this break here? You think there's a significant difference?
No, I think you're dead on when you say like 1.1, 1.2. There's different, but not enough to call it Klinsman-esque.
Right. Let's take a break. When we come back, Brian Straus from the Sporting News will talk about the game with us, give his insight on it. Don't go anywhere. Best Soccer Show, North American Soccer Network. Jason Davis, Jared Dubois closing out the Best Soccer Show on a Wednesday night. Post USA 1, Italy 0. Although I guess if I was going to do it in the continental style, wouldn't I say Italy 0, USA 1? Isn't that how I would say it?
Why would you start being continental now? You hate everything about continental.
I wouldn't. We've brought in Brian Straus from the Sporting News. Excellent coverage of American soccer over there to talk about this game. Brian, I know you wish you were in Genoa, but give us your thoughts on the context. Give us some context on what this win means. We talked about it. We debated it. Is it as big as it seems, I guess?
Yeah, I was about to compliment you for not saying nil, and then you went and ruined it.
No, I was. Yeah, I was. That was meta.
He was being ironic.
Yes.
I could have just put the show down the crapper by pretending to be British or Christian Miles, but I went to Paris for the France game in November, and yeah, I'm definitely thinking I made the wrong choice. I should have given Klinsman the benefit of the doubt and waited. Is this a big win? Yeah, I think it's a big win. I think intangibles matter in soccer. I think intangibles matter when you've got a new coach and you've got new players and a new system, and you're trying to feel each other out and get confidence and see if you're on the right track and all that stuff. And today demonstrated certain things. There were good lessons learned. Guys who needed confidence got it. A couple of guys who needed to really stake their claim to starting positions did so. So yeah, I mean, I don't care what it means in terms of rankings or that nonsense, but I think when you're trying to build something, boosts like today do matter. And so yeah, I'm not gonna sort of be a snob and write this thing off. I think it's big.
Brian, let's talk for a second about what did it mean to the U.S. team going to the half, into the locker room at 0-0 at the half, because they came out with a much better sense of purpose. A lot of the guys stepped up their game in the second half. Was that, you think, a big moral boost for them, being able to last 45 minutes with Italy and not give up the lead?
Yeah, I think it did, but I would push it even a little bit further back. I think getting out of that first 15, 20 minutes still scoreless was actually sort of where the moral boost happened, because we all saw, I mean, the back four did look shaky. I think it took Goodson and Bocanegra a few minutes to figure out how to track some of those runs coming in from deep. Obviously they were, Italy was trying to beat the offside trap, and, I said on my story, I mean, Bocanegra and Goodson were playing on the razor's edge there for a while, and things were really close. And I think once they sort of found their rhythm, got their communication down and back, and you got through that first hairy 15, 20, 25 minutes, I think once you're scoreless at that point and things start to settle down, that's where you start to gain some confidence, and that's where the boost happens. I was almost a little bit worried, actually, going into half, that maybe they'd lose some of that. And they were moving off the ball well. They found some really good passing combinations. I was actually worried that maybe they'd lose some of the momentum going into halftime, but obviously they didn't.
Talk about the guy that set up Clint Dempsey for the goal, Josie Altidore, and kind of his progression. Is this another step for him, or is it just a little bit more evidence that he is kind of getting there already?
Don't you guys, I often have to sort of remind myself that he's still 22,
Yeah.
And, he's been around forever,
right. And
we've sort of been waiting for him to, just kick ass forever, that sometimes you forget that he barely is old enough to buy a beer, I get caught with that too. I start to get impatient or frustrated. And I'm like, wow, God, he's a kid. He'd still be in college,
Right.
So I try to, and plus I'm a former striker. That's the position that I'm the biggest jerk about too. So I find myself falling into that trap door now and then and getting frustrated with him. But then you got to sort of get a reality check and realize he is still learning. He scored 13 goals, I think, for AZ this year.
Sounds right.
Yeah, all competitions, yeah.
But I'm going to say AZ. And He's learning about what Klinsman wants him to do. I don't know if it's how Altidore is best suited. I don't know if it suits Dempsey's game the best, but it's clearly what Klinsman wants. And obviously on the goal, Altidore proved he could do it. He killed that cross from Johnson. That was not a hard ball to settle. He had to reach his foot out and knock that thing down, and it was flying. And he did so, and was able to shift his body and play the ball back to Dempsey. That was a hard play, and he pulled it off.
Brian, a lot of the talk coming out of this game was about either Michael Bradley, Fabian Johnson. Who's the man of the match, and is Fabian Johnson's future with this national team at left back?
Yeah, I think Bradley's the man of the match, and I think, and I wrote this in my column afterward. I'm not sure if it's up on sportingnews.com yet, but I think Bradley since 2009 has been one of the 11 best players we have. But I also think that he probably wasn't concerned about losing his starting spot. And I think what Klinsman has come in and realized is that there's an extra level of desperation that a player can play with. And he's talked on and on about several guys, including Dempsey, pushing them to a higher level, lighting a fire. I mean, those are his words. But like we would say, lighting a fire under a guy, pushing him out of his comfort zone. And Bradley, as talented as he is, I think we'd all agree was probably in a comfort zone under Bob. And Klinsman came in, benched him in October, didn't play him against France, told me in my interview with him at Versailles that he preferred Kyle Beckerman, just flat out said it. And he was pushing Bradley. He was pushing him to a place he hadn't been before, where he really, really felt desperate for his spot. And wow, was he good today. Did he make a statement today with a full field performance, great tackling, smart passing? I think someone on Twitter said that Gazzetta dello Sport said he completed over 90% of his passes today. That's Xavier.
Yeah.
And he did that while keeping track of Andrea Pirlo.
Right.
So fabulous performance, man of the match, I think, and great things to come. I mean, he's still got 2 World Cups left in him easily. So Fabian Johnson, he's a little older for a debutant, I suppose. He's 23 or 24. I can't place it, but yeah, he's really, really good. And Sporting News asked me for our January issue to name like a rising star, up and comer in American soccer, and I picked him. I think he's clearly the best of the lot in terms of the German American players that Klinsman has unearthed. Where's his future? That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, it depends on maybe where Cherundolo fits in the future. Depends on where Donovan slides in once he finally plays for the national team again. It's great to have a guy who can do all of it, and he clearly can. He can clearly play anywhere in midfield. He can play outside back, and he's a fabulous addition to the team. I'm really excited about it.
Brian, as a follow-up to the Bradley portion, 3-4 years from now, is Michael Bradley the captain of this team? Doesn't he have the intensity and the leadership by example that could make a good captain for this team?
Yeah, I guess.
Are we England? Are we England? We're not England. Why are we worried about in a couple of years who's going to be captain? I'm sorry, Brian. I jumped in.
Well, it's funny. It's funny because I'm a media nerd, so it's like my immediate instinct is the captain is the one who goes to the press conference.
Right.
The pregame press conference goes to the captain. And do I want Michael Bradley at 5 years worth of pregame press conferences? For Michael, but he's nice guy, but yeah, maybe not the most quotable all the time. So I don't think it matters that much. I think we've all sort of been teasing the English about their obsession about it. The English feel the need to be obsessed about things like that, because otherwise they have to confront the fact that they're terrible. So they think on minutia in order to sort of take away from the real problem. We do the same thing in American politics.
Right.
So, if Bradley's the captain or not, whatever. I mean, maybe Donovan's the captain when Bocanegra retires, and maybe after that, Bradley. That's cool with me.
Brian, there's some chatter about whether or not Klinsman is actually affecting style change here, and whether that game is an example of anything different than we saw under Bob Bradley. I said in the last segment that if Bob Bradley was version 1.0, that we're at 1.1, that it's not that different. Where do you fall on that? Are things actually changing?
That's a really good question. I don't know that there's an answer. I did a feature on Chris Wondolowski last week, and after sort of talking about him and his role with the Earthquakes and the national team, we chatted a bit about his experience with Klinsman at camp in January, and Wondolowski said something similar from what a couple other guys I've talked to have said. Kyle Beckerman is a good example. Dempsey is a good example, about how Klinsmann sees the national team and the commitment to playing at that level as a much more holistic 24/7 commitment and endeavor than Bradley did. Bradley was a great tactician. Bradley could sit there with film and break down every single moment in the game and every single decision and every single play. Klinsmann is less so micromanaging about what goes on the field, but what goes on off the field, he seems to be far more concerned about. He's drilling these guys on training habits, on nutrition, on psychological stuff, lifestyle stuff. He wants them to think about everything they put in their bodies, everything they do, how they handle the media, how they handle fans. He talks about, if a player makes a mistake at a certain level at a certain club, he's got to think about where he's going to go get his donuts the following morning and all that kind of stuff. He wants these guys speaking like elite world-class players 24/7. And so to me, that's going to affect some change to create a different kind of player and a different kind of outlook. How that's going to manifest itself on the field, I'm not exactly sure. But Klinsmann has told me and others that for him it's about speed. For him it's about speed of play, speed of thought, speed of movement. And I think today we did see, especially when the U.S. had the ball, some of the off-the-ball movement and some of the passing options that were available because guys were sort of reacting faster and anticipating faster with their runs off the ball than we've seen in the past. They had a lot more options available to them, and we saw some really nice combinations, moving inside and outside, guys playing together on the wings, the outside backs overlapping. And so if Klinsmann sort of live it, breathe it, think it sort of approach to playing has, I don't know if any of this makes sense, but
I got
the way that the material is on the field, I think it's through that sort of awareness and anticipation that he's looking for. For him, the difference between the elite teams and us is speed.
Right.
It's not only physical speed, but speed of technique, speed of thought, speed of reaction. He talks about this constantly. So by immersing guys in it, by making sure that they're as fit and as well fed, he does blood tests, he does all kinds of, he does everything to sort of make these guys into soccer machines. And so my assumption is that we will see some more speed and professionalism on the field.
Right.
My issue with Klinsmann and some of the other guys in U.S. soccer is that they invoke Barcelona too much, and that's got to stop. Right. Barcelona can't be a target. It can't be an ideal. We have to get away from thinking we've got Barcelona's youth system and Xavi and Iniesta and Messi coming through the ranks.
Right.
We need to be more realistic about what kind of soccer you want to play. But I do think Klinsmann is on the right track. And I mean, Wondolowski said, I'd never thought as much about these kinds of decisions I make off the field and how they're going to affect the way I play on the field. And that's what he's giving to these guys, and that's what he's getting them to think about.
We're up against the clock, Brian. Really quickly, thumbs up or thumbs down on the away jersey?
Thumbs down. It's lazy. It's okay.
Okay. All right. That works. Well, let's leave it there. Lazy, I think, works. We've got to get out. People are going to want to watch this U23 game. Thanks, Brian. We appreciate it. Brian Straus, This Morning News. Go check it out. Please do that. It's great coverage. We'll talk to you soon, Brian.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. I got to wrap it up here quick. We want people to be able to watch the U23 game. Got to pip the iTunes as usual. Got to pip Yanks Abroad is a new addition to NASN.TV, so make sure you get on that train. You want to get in on that. What am I missing, Jared? Quickly.
You can get us on Roku. You can also get us. Our Sunday show will come out this week. Not quite sure how we're going to handle it yet. It's going to be a much more casual show. A lot more time to really go into depth than we did tonight.
Yeah, and I want to credit John Godfrey, who we had on Thursday, or was that last week? I can't remember.
Last week, yeah.
Whenever we had him on, he gave us a prediction. He said the U.S. would win in Genoa, and they did. He didn't have the scoreline right, but he had the result right, and he's the only one I know that picked the U.S., at least in the media world, in the blogging/media world, that had the U.S. winning, and they came through. So
thanks to Will Kuhns. Thanks to Brian Straus. Thanks for coming on tonight. Much appreciated.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you later. Bye.